Standing taller than its 36-story building and weighs 6,700,000 pounds, in the year 1969 the Saturn V moon rocket was the biggest man-made object ever sent into space. Representing the epitome of human research, it was a technological marvel that outweighed even those whose dedication and long, hard labor had come together to make it a reality. No one on Earth suspected that there were forces at work throughout the galaxy, good as well as evil, to whom the massive rocket was nothing more than an oversized firecracker. Though not the first Saturn V to be launched from the Kennedy Space Center, Apollo 11 was special. The three astronauts waiting patiently in the capsule stopped what was, after all, little more than a gigantic but hopefully domesticated flying bomb had trained long and hard for the coming mission. But they were still human. They were not machines. They were not certainly not robots. All three of them had families and lived they fully intended to return to. No one doubted the success of the forthcoming venture, but that did not mean they have no qualms. A ton of explosive fuel waiting to be ignited just out of their backside were enough to induce a second throughout even most highly trained individuals. Too late for any kind of thought now except for those incidental for carrying out the launch. Switches were thrown, readouts checked and rechecked, the permanent internal device on the late 1960s engages. Over the craft's internal speakers, the three waiting astronauts could hear the composed voice of mission control. T minus 30 seconds and counting. Simple words of some of the most complex, coordinated activities humankind has ever attempted. The men on board responded as they had been trained to do. Astronauts report all system check out. The controller announced T minus 5 seconds and counting. While the men on board devoted their full attention to respective instruments, they still managed to find time for personal thoughts. The uppermost among those was a certain knowledge that if the launch failed and the rocket blew, they were likely to never know what happened to them. T minus 15 seconds, guidance going internal. The briefest, most significant of pauses then 12, 11, 10, 9, ignition. The sequence in start 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. We have ignition. Of the Saturn V, we have ignition. The three kind of rumble of one experiences only beneath the center of the supercell thunderstorm erupted from the base of the rocket, and it was a half dozen tornadoes has been recorded spinning around a common axis. Those observers not stationed at a distance but not wearing a suitable protection hesitating to control their ears. All engine running. Slowly the pendulous grace that was once a wonder of a possibility, behold, the entire enormous cylinder shape began to move, racing from the launching pad, slowly panicking of speed and trailing streamers of white. The Saturn moon rocket climbed skyward with an agonizing steadiness that was a tribute of the thousand individuals who had worked to make it a reality. Liftoff. The controller was quite able to retain itself. We have a liftoff. 32 minutes past an hour. We have a liftoff of Apollo 11. Realizing that he had not been cleared to express personal enthusiasm, the controller restrained itself. The tower has been cleared. Outside, man-made thunder sent waiting birds in the nearby shallows fleeing in all directions. Bemused alligators dug underwater while swamp rodents of various species scrambled frantically for cover. Within mission control, a new voice and a new controller took over. Okay, we're gone to roll program. Still a third voice added, with becoming calm. Neil Armstrong reporting that we are in roll and pitch program. Apollo 11 is now on a proper heading. Destination the moon. Same year, same day, same time. While the attention of the world was focused on a spit of low, sandy land on the east coast of humid Florida, something remarkably similar was taking place nearby a half east hemisphere away, far, far from the north of the Saturn V launching pad, so far of the north that it was ignored. No one pad made attention to such places. They were inhabited of solar polar bears and seals, narwhals and arctic bears, howling gales and blinding blizzards. Located on a high Arctic island so rugged and isolated and difficult to reach that it was sunned, even by the interpreted Inuit hunters Something extraordinary was taking place. At first glance, it was probably based in a launching site that would immediately have remained a starred visitor of a historic event currently unfolding far on the south in Florida. Closer inspection, coupled with a little knowledge of rockets and astronautics, however, would have indirected that the major components involved were very different indeed from those located on the Atlantic shore. They stood, they looked like nothing that had never been permitted in magazines just as Aviation Week or Sky and Telescope or even Analog. Some of them, in fact, looked downright alien. The ship currently standing on an angled camouflage launching pad resembled the Vulcan Saturn V. Moon rocket about as much as a child blessed with glider resembled a jet fighter. It was sleek and winged and boosted only a single stage instead of a Saturn III, a sort of deadly underrhythmic bulge and undercurrents brethrened from a site hidden at a technology that was ten, perhaps hundreds of years in advance of the best that Florida facility could send skyward, even the monitoring equipment within a single low, snow-covered structure that served as local mission control as far in advance of anything used at Kennedy. Identification of any kind was noticeably absent both within the heated confines of the control station and on the ship itself. Anyone standing outside is in the frigid now whippet Arctic air might have been the same on the side of a slanty waiting ship. Ghost One, a concise designation whose full meaning anyone not immediately involved with the highly secret project would have been unable to grasp. There was a small sign, almost an afterthought, on the main entrance to Mission Control. Alpha Base Sector 7. Not very informative. That signage, deliberately so, not that many unauthorized pedestrians were likely to wander off the frozen Arctic Ocean, and integrate as to its meaning. At least one element of the forthcoming Furthermore launch would have been familiar. However, already decades old, the additional countdown could not be improved upon. T minus 30 seconds and counting. SS Ghost reports all systems good to go, fighting the chill wind. Outdoor observers made last minute checks and other instruments. T minus 25 seconds. T minus 15 seconds. Counter system online. Drive system attention. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. The sound of that emerged from the steam of the strange ship was silkier than that produced by the liquid oxygen based on propellant that powered the Saturn V. This ship was propelled by an entirely different combination of reactants. It showed not only in the different pitch of the engine, but also in the fact that there are less fire and smoke. Something radiology knew was lifting the ship aloft, something special, secret, and driven from sources outside of the and unknown up to NASA exclusive group of scientists and engineers. Propulsion system is a go. We have a liftoff. Even the controller's voice differed markedly from it of his counterpart at Kennedy's. It was if he was not only an engineer but something more as well, a member of a branch of government whose interests included specialties and innovators beyond the exploration of space. Ghost One is off, a man declared coolly. 32 minutes, 16 seconds, past an hour, we have a liftoff of Ghost One. A moment later, he added, the tower is cleared. From the remarkable, rapidly accelerating craft, a male voice responded. All program engage. Within a tightly sealed structure, so very different from mission control in Florida, a technician stated at his mother declared. Captain Walker is pouring that Ghost One is into the roll call a pitch program. Watching his own screen, the text next to him murmured softly. If all that preparatory calculation prove out, that should put both Ghost 1 on a heading and departure well away from Apollo 11. Standing between them, the older man let his attention wander from the monitor to the next. He was nodding to himself as he spoke. So far, so good. While the words is transfixed by Apollo, our ship will slip away unnoted, he smiled, like a ghost through the atmosphere. Every telescope on Earth will be watching the moon rocket. Straightening, he called across another technican, informed headquarters. The baby bird that hatched last year has finally spread its wing. Send the relevant details, maximum intercepted. There is a lot more room on the advanced prototype called Ghost than on the Apollo. Smoother it, and their launch seats. The three astronauts personally bound for the moon would have been as colonized as the other vessels, comparatively spacious interiors. Blasting through the atmosphere, the Clearance craft left behind the familiar bounds of Earth as it was snored spaceward. Every possible precaution notwithstanding, a pair of amateur astron- astronomers did take notice of the launch. One was located near Kiruna, Sweden, and the other just outside Moose Jaw, Canada. The first was convinced he was drunk and disregarded what, what he saw through his telescope. The second received a visit from several members of the branch of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police that, by all accounts, did not actually exist. There were there were talk of meteors. There were mention of a visit of a certain mental institution. Something was said to both sky watchers about confiscating of equipment of the name of national security. Nothing further was heard from either man, ever. Ghost's unique propulsion system shut down. As it glitched towards the stars, the craft was now free Earth of Earth's gravity. On board sights relief from a new of the crew mixed with await examination as the view out of the forward post study seated. So that was the homeworld looks like from space. Each of them muzzled silently and separately, blue and white and beautiful, and small, oh so small. Sam Walker would enjoy the view later. The mission commander is time for sightseeing, much as it was. Lay well in the future, his free time being inversely proportional to his responsibilities. He would be lucky to have a moment or two entirely to himself, and that moment was not now. Learning forward slightly, he directed his voice toward the nearest pickup. SSAB command. This is Ghost 1. Temporarily. Orbit achieved. We're positioning for the first solar direction burn. All systems are green, though. He knew that he sounded calm and confident. That was nothing more than his professional self operating on instinct. The truth was that he had never been so tense in his life. Part of it came from the strain attendant of managing a successful liftoff. A lot of it was due to the knowledge that a grind journey he and his crew had embarked upon could win up becoming a suicide mission. Do not plan it officially as such. Part test, part reconnaissance. Ghost One mission was the first determined if the ship was truly space-worthy than explorers of the solar system. For many signs of it being similar to the Iceman, Sector 7 wanted to know if an attack might be sighting of the far side of Jupiter. Using the advanced technology of Ghost 1, they should be able to complete the mission and return to Earth within 6 months. Thought the odds were largely against completing a successful round trip. Walker had believed from the first time he had been exposed to the unpliable calculation that the ship could complete its target journey and still make it safely back. Privately, he had made his primary mission to get his crew home. That was not what he told his superiors, of course. The experience has taught him that not only it was unnecessary to commit his personal intention to paper, often it was best not even to mention them to anyone else. Yes, he had his official orders. Their mission was to get out of the edge of the solar system before intending to return home. And yes, he had his own priorities. If it all went optimally, he would be unfulfillable. So far, so good, he told himself. Besides, there were precedents of this kind of mission. Columbus, for example, told the queen and king that one thing when they're no longer looking over your shoulder, set your responsibility to your crew. Rotating at his seat, he scrutinized and carefully picked a team. Like him, every one of them was a volunteer. Like him, they had read and signed the permanent waivers, just as each of them knew the deal, knew what they were getting into. As much as anyone could know, we were all aware of the risk mission entitled, thrown together in haste and compelled to work and study over time. They had melted into an efficient team during the simulation. If getting back to Earth was a long shot, well, so was getting successfully off the planet. If we had done that, we thought of Columbus again, another long shot that was planned out. Despite making no attempt to conceal the risk, there had been no shortage of appliance. Life was short, and the number of highly trained specialists ready to give up TV and movies, dual food, and dual conversation for a chance to push the boundaries of human knowledge was extensive. As the first one to be officially assigned to the project, Walker was not surprised. He was one of them. The voice of mission control was already starting the new signs of breaking up. Static crackled. Ardos of the ground moving their instrumentation in order to maintain contact. Sounds good, Ghost One. Everything looks fine from here. Two, stand by. The smooth voice that spoke off softly behind Walker was full of jaunty resignation. You do know there's a good chance we're all going to die here, right? Walker turned around and narrowed his gaze as he glared at Graves Clarkson. Do you mind? He snapped it. You prepared for just like the rest of us. It's a little late for second thoughts, and if now you're feeling a morbid turn of mind, do the rest of us a favor and keep it to yourself. He paused briefly for emphasis. You can feel however as long as you do your job. Just keep it between ears. The system engineer looked probably as bashed. I'm sorry, Captain Clarkson mustered a wan smile. Yes, I'm more nervous than I thought I would be. You think about how you're going to react. You talk to the vice boys about it, but there's really no way to prepare. Not for something nobody's done before or might ever do again. Being the first is one thing. Getting yourself ready to be the last is something else. Looking past Walker, he started out the name nothing less that made up the views out of his four, four-point, making it bad. There's theoretical, not like Buffalo. There was a perfect design or no. The trip is a bunch of advanced math and new physics that hold up okay on paper, but might not do it so in reality. That's what we're here to find out. Walker did his best to project confidence. Once again, everyone was apprised of the risk before they signed on for this mission. As system engineer, you ought to be more familiar with them as any of us, he muttered a smile. It's all going to work, just like the theorists laid it out before they started to design the ghost on the ghost. It's going to work, and we're going to make it back. I am delighted to hear that you think so, Clarkson paused. No spacecraft had never been tested under any kind of condition that we're going to be subjected to, to on this mission. There is no way to simulate them. The wind tunnel is one thing, and turbulent space another. I do my best to keep it my option to myself. But not forgive me. I'm a little I'm a little skeptical. Walker looked past him, peering around the cabin and meeting the expectant stares of every member of the crew. The only one who ignored him was the second in command, Jacob Thompson, the damn fine pilot, the Academy would say. At the moment he was considering of his station readouts and gauges, Thompson was quietly content to let rocker while he monitored the ship. Further back, Michael Avery was a figurative, if not literal, heaven. This mission chef, science officer Avery had recorded enough full new information between the time of liftoff, enough to keep him busy for years, and it just started out. He had been part of the team that he had developed an initial Ghost 1 project. He was all scientist, to the point that he wouldn't care if they failed to make it home, as long as they had enough time to transit the knowledge he had acquired through the course of the journey. If the science survived, he considered himself expandable. And of course, there was Maria Gonzalez. In addition of handing out the communication and having to fend off but the by now tiresome references to her as Uhura, she was responsible for concealing everything that happened through the journey and making sure the information was safely transmitted to back to mission control. She was effectively good and compliant as a commander. Walker Faye's letter attribute as much of a former. They were a good mix, he told himself, each expectantly competent of their chosen field. Maybe not perfect, perhaps not the very best, but given the constraint and requirements of the most unusual mission in the history of the convert solar system space program, certainly the best to have made himself available. Once he was sure he had everyone's attention, including Thompson, Walker leaned forward and dropped his folded hands between his spread legs, adapting as informal a pose he could manage in the absence of gravity. Well, we made it this far. Relieved laughter and an isolated, edgy glance greeted his observation. Not too bad for a groundbreaking mission. Atmosphere breaking. Put in Avery is saying a weak attempt at a joke. Walker appreciated, even if nobody laughed. We've catch of us spent years preparing for this. I don't need to reiterate that if we're going to get through this mission successfully, we got to rely on one another. Everyone assists everyone else. There are no polymath on this ship, but each of you has at least some experience in more than one area of expertise, or put in non-technical but entirely relevant team terms. Everybody watch everybody else back. There is no turning around now. Thought it was hardly necessary to do so. He paused a moment to let it sink in. This ship will perform not only because who designed and built intended to do it so, but because this is the best possible crew to make it work. It will perform. We have to get out and push. I just want you to know that each and every one of you that you have my solemn promise. No matter what happens, no matter what unexpected challenges and difficulties may we may encounter, no matter what the instruments say, I will find a way to get out of us safely home again. Except for the soft humming of equipment. It was dead silent in the cabin. Someone might have let a chair, except there was no time. Miss Control was on the horn again, and would be denied. Ghost 1, this SSAB command. We are all set down here and ready to track you on the first solar burn. Running final system check. Walker ignored the call. If anyone consumed by doubts, now it is time to dump them. He did not look in Coruscant direction. Rip realized to be on the most advanced, most complex, and the most safety redundant spacecraft mankind has yet built. It do not and can't do amazing things. Things I wouldn't have dreamed if were possible. If I weren't a direct part of the project, we were going to complete our mission and then we're going to go home. Is that clear? This time the voice from the ground did not interrupt. Everyone closer their agreement, albeit some more angelically than others. It was enough. Good. Civilian in his seat. Walker turned back to the main console. Now let's do this. And go where no man has gone before. Poor woman, Maria added defiantly. Walker smiled to himself. He deliberately left her end the opening, and, sure enough, she had jumped on it. Highly trained technicians. We're more predictable than most. SSAB command. This is Ghost One. All systems are green. We were all fired to go for first burn on my mark, he claims at Jake, who nodded. Mark in five, four, three, two, one, mark. Careful not to let anyone see him. Walker out his tiniest possible sight to relieve when the engine successfully fired anew. Everyone was pushed back onto their seats. Maybe one day, he thought, there would come a time when onboard computers were advanced enough to allow the crew to relax entirely. But the time was not yet. And Thompson kept a firm grip on the controls, while this was not the time for making manual course corrections. There was no harm in being prepared to do so should the need make should the need present itself. Besides, Thompson was the pilot, and pilot disliked handing over the flying of the craft to a machine. Probably what always would. Walker muzzled away. Anyway, if a bun sit on slightly, of course, it should be easy enough to correct. Headed outward from Earth, their first target would be hard to miss. With its unprecedented engine firing smoothly and the concert Ghost 1 headed straight towards the sun. Construction of the Sector 7 High Arctic base had demonized the alteration of American finest cold weather engineers. The implanting of new technology and a ton of money flowed throughout the various countries of black appropriations. The base was not yet finished, and might ever be. It had been work in progress ever since the discovery of the alien frozen in the ice. The bulk of facilities were underground, everything in fuel storage tank to food prep areas. Those facilities that by their nature and purpose could not be buried had been carefully designed so for the visible portion of the complex resembled a typical Arctic research station. The launching pad wasn't attended. Propylaea was located on the most inaccessible part of the island, concealed from a cultural site on three sides by high step-sided mountains. An astute observer stumbling on a complex might, if he or she were partly preserved, note that for a research facility was a fundamental military presence, much more than might he needed, say to the safeguard many information recently obtained on reproductive habits of the Arctic hare, or on the migration patterns of the right whale. Incorrect and large as it was, the launch complex had also been designed to be, if not truly portable, at least capable of being rapidly engaged and disassembled. It was better processed that it was underway at the moment. Swarm of technicians operating a big machine were disabling the tower communication, cooling facilities, and much more. Even the blast pad was swiftly and effectively camouflaged so that it would form an air that would look like nothing more than a landlocked chunk of ice. Huge section of gantry, length, and conduit fire branking constant support structure were taking part of the components of a giant reactor set and trunnited underground or packed neatly to the campus waiting bunkers. Those engaged in the difficult dangers and well-rehearsed tasks feared accident more than the wind or cold. Tough. He, too, presumably functioning below ground. Colonel Thomas Cleaner was gazing out through the wide, temple-paned window. Beyond, teams of technicians scurried about like termites and vast subterranean chamber as they prepared to move the Iceman, also known among those charges with protecting and preserving it as that damn alien monstrosity. Over Cleaner's victorious objection of the government had turned to relocate the Iceman and the bulk of the team assigned to studying him in a new facility in the lower 48. A major mistake Kleiner had insisted with was possibility of the move being debated. We're damn near invincible up here. What a day today, whatever the storm that blow without a warning. And to isolation, no one concerns anywhere near us. Never mind in youths. Probably reporters refer to big hotels with warm bars. The same thing goes for curious reps working for the government. Aside from being able to more easily maintain security and security. The more significant issues that I don't think have been fully addressed. For example, I don't know what moving the Iceman might do. He might be affected by the more process of movement. What happens if something goes wrong and what he throws out? Given his status within Project Killer concerned, he had taken seriously, examined the details, and promptly dismissed too many over-anxious clinical. Researchers had wanted to speed up their progress to unreserved engineering the alien. The delivery process had already led to a number of important breakouts in at least three fields. The Ghost one was the only most prominent and dramatic consequence of that work. Too many scientists and their political protons believed that the only way to accelerate the progress they were making was to regulate the Iceman to a place where research could be carried out without the need to shuttle scientists back and forth, no one on the most remote regions of the Arctic. They were also anxious to observe him in the same facility with the same instruments that were being used to study a certain particular otherworldly cube that bore markings similar to those that had been found on the frozen bipedal entity. This bring the damned cube to the Arctic facility. Kerner had allowed at the panel that was charged with discussing the move. It's a far safer and more secure location, and the cube would be a lot easier to ship than the Iceman. Not necessarily, he had been told without explanation. The members of the panel had been abandoned. The cube can't be moved. Worse than information than anything else was that, despite that high security clearance, nobody would tell them why. Tom Connor had been in the military all his adult life, but that has not prevented him from questioning orders he did not understand or believe were unsupported by evidence and logic. When he had been approached about heading up the secret pyramid project during extremely classified work, the likes of which he had never been heard of, he jumped at the opportunity. Most of the time he was proud of what took place at his command. The operation of the Arctic operated on the cutting edge of the military and significant technology. Boundaries were probed and exceeded every day. The recent successful launch of the Ghost One had been high point, the culmination of the years of hard work experimentation. Today, however, left a lot to be desired. If the higher ups in charge of the point valued this option so highly, then why had they chosen to ignore it this time? He did his best to set his anger aside, even as his opinion had been set aside. At least he couldn't fault the steps he had been taking to ensure the Iceman remained frozen for the difficult clearance journey south. The special container had been built and had been designed to work on the outside, nothing less more than an oversized shipping container. For the duration of the journey could be accomplished completed both within and without by technicians familiar with the artifact unique requirements. In addition to standard refrigeration, constantly recycled liquid nitrogen would be used to ensure that the body remained frozen. The scheme had been constructed with backups for the backups. Watching the officers as preparation continued, Caniar prided himself on knowing that only the names but also the backgrounds of every one of the officers and technicians assigned to the project. It was an ability that would stand him in good stead should he ever follow through his lingering desire to enter politics, given his professional history. That was a possibility that would always be slim. What is your background, Connor? Can't tell you that, sir. Well then, what is your specialty during your time in the military? Can't tell you that, ma'am. Can you tell the voters anything that you accomplished over the past 10 years? Well, I was hooked on cigarettes, but I'm off them now. No, much as he might wish to consider it. A public life was one of that was probably close to him. Not too much, not to anyone who had been worked in Sector 7, however. He found himself focusing on one of the busy supervisors below. Lieutenant Jensen, good man, fine soldier, always upbeat, always ready to do what they smile, knew not only his own assignment, but usually those of anyone he was working with as well. Killinger suddenly found himself frowning at nothing in particular, always curious about others' specialties. Jason was a sign of exceptional intelligence or something else. In space of a couple of minutes, he had gone from imitation of Johnson to the first stirring of suspicions. It was part of his job, of course. It was hinted at the paranoia that stretches beyond the professional. That could happen to someone who has spent too much time working for Sector 7. Kirner was sharp enough to recognize his signs. He couldn't much care for the way they made him feel. He already made up his mind. If the powers that weren't going to take his advice, then there was no point in knocking himself out to provide it. As soon as the Iceman move was complete, that the portion of the high Arctic facility closed, he was going to apply for retirement. The government owed him a healthy pension, and he was still young enough to enjoy every dollar of it. He had it all planned, thinking that it had helped him through some difficult times at the base. He was going to move to Virgin Islands. No more relentless cold and ice and wind. No more enigmatic frozen alien bodies by the fishing boat run charters and slip run. Maybe even meet someone and get married. When you couldn't tell anyone where you work, that what you work on, when the government might call you for some far off land with more consonants than vowels on its name, you don't have much any of the opportunity to develop social life. When he was younger, he had one. He still remembered what it was like, and he was looking forward to rescuing where he had left off in his 20s. One thing that he would ease his mind if the wretches would quit swimming around. As far as they were concerned, the Arctic was their personal backyard. Reports of lawyers of high altitude spy craft were unconfirmed, but they rescued with a nagging regularly. They couldn't do anything about such rumors, just as he couldn't do anything about the Soviet atomic-powered icebreaker that had strayed dangerously close to the island where the station was located while engaged in purely scientific research. Well, he'll be done with it all soon enough. Thoughts of warm weather, cold beer, and fighting fish pushed image of glowing, Volca swilling Soviet agent out of his mind. They made him as gloomy as the subject matter. Why not concentrate on something positive, like the lunch? It had gone faultlessly. The subject faultless, even for the victorious present of the impending storm front that had masked events from any eyes that might have been turned north from the nearest communities. The social as well as physical aspect of the project were proceeding as planned. While the population of the planet was transfixed by the fight of Apollo 11, Ghost 1 had been taking off the opposite direction entirely unsurveyed. The several monitors mounted on the console of the right showed various locations of mission control. Was all comparatively quiet. The last flurry of activity anxiously had accomplished the ship's first bump, which has gone as smoothly as the launch itself. It was time for exhausted technician to lean back, relax, and exchange notes of observations. Staring into the hangar, he watched as dozens of technicians operating a raft of machinery prepared to ship the Iceman. One day at and know exactly what the artifact was, maybe even where it has come from. One day perhaps the mission would help bring some enlightenment, having spent so much time in the company of the frozen alien. He would like to share in one of those eventual revelations. But not at the expense, he told himself, of slipping over the blue water in the vast boat with the sun warming his face and friends at his side who had stared into their eyes instead of on their shoulders. Captain, we're on the final approach for the slingshot. Thompson spoke without looking up in the console. If you were about was report, determine the need is made in a couple of minutes. Walter looked around at the rest of his crew. Clarkson, Gonzalez, Liz. Every looked relaxed, attention to respective station and waiting for his response. Expectation flavored at the airside ship. All engines green. All indicators positive. Nobody has to go to the bathroom? He smiled and was rewarded so kind. I'd say we're good to go. Turning forward, he clicked transmit and addressed the pickup SS command. This is Ghost 1. We're approaching. This is Ghost 1. We're approaching coordinates for slide shot and all system go. They were far enough out now for there would be noticeable time response delay. Static beacon and the response but not to gibble it. This Ghost 1. This is his command. We copy. Everything looks good from down here too. Are you are to go for a slingshot following burn congruent with World TV and deposit with communication back blackout. Off approximately 6 standard hours. Good luck. We will talk to you again on the other side. SSAB command. This is Ghost 1, Rocker repeated. Thanks for the good work. We'll talk to you soon. He turned to Thompson and nodded. Let's see if things can make the kind of speed of math boys have claimed. Internally, he is far more nervous than he let on. No human-built craft had never come anywhere near the vicious ghost was about to attempt. Compared with what they were going to try during Slingshot, the Apollo spacecraft on its way to the moon would appear to be standing still. He was less worried about the failure unique pollution system than he was about the fabric of the ship holding together. And try not to mess up the angles, Clarkson was saying, or we're all going to come out the other side as crispy critters. If it comes all if it comes out at all. Can we toss him out as we go by, Captain? Thompson's attention never wandered from the controls. Walker chucked. Knew Jake will keep him for ballast. Besides, he wouldn't want to be without our engineer now, would we? If what if something really critical like the food prep system were to break and someone eventually had to do some work on this thing? His comment broke any remaining ice. Ice, he muzzled. Hold on, hold on, with that thought. True enough, the co-pilot concealed. Ready to burn on your mark. Walker closed his eyes briefly, considering that they were about to do. If the calculations were off by even a tiny amount, they would find themselves caught by the sun's massive gravity field. And without my sunglasses, he reflected, if those who have run and rerun the relevant computation back on Earth had misplaced a cosine or a decimal, he and his crew would perish unknown and unrecognized, a qualified footnote in the history of Sector 7. If the calculation were correct, but the ship failed to function as intended, they would still die. The opportunities for lingering and unrecognized demise were manifold. Truly a mission fraught with possibilities. A little late, he reminded himself. The opportunities for lingering and unrecognized demise were meaningful. Truly a mission fraught with possibilities. A little late, he reminded himself, through a second guess having put in his name, when the system had originally asked for volunteers. Opening his eyes, he smiled across at Thompson. The co-pilot was staring at him. Sorry, Jake. I was trying to remember if I brought along my suntan lotion. Thompson noticed some barely. I've got some extra with cocoa butter. Walter grinned back. Okay, let's do this. On my mark. In 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Mark. Thompson flipped 3 switches in rapid succession. Engines that were previously had existed only in the imagination of science fiction writers came to life, and Ghost One accelerated at incredible speed towards as far side of the sun.